Good Monday morning. We have just 1 week left of talking about things in the telomere effect. And for this week, we're going to touch on some things about what we pass along. It probably comes as no surprise to you, but cellular aging begins in the womb. Yes, telomere length is influenced by genetics. But there's more to the story. Parents can pass their shortened telomeres to their children. Besides genetics, there's a form of epigenetic through direct transmission. So the length of the parent's telomeres at conception are thought to be passed to the fetus. Let that sink in for a moment. If the parent's telomeres are short at conception, especially the mother's, those shortened telomeres are passed directly to the baby. Can those shortened telomeres be passed through generations? Yes, it is thought that they can, because your mother passed shortened telomeres to you and yours are short. So guess what? So are your child's, and so on and so on. Think about that for a hot minute. People living in certain zip codes across the U.S., representing wealthier communities, are expected to live 10 years longer than zip codes that are from poorer areas. Think about that. Besides the risky behaviors and exposure to violence, the actual biology of babies born into certain zip codes may be different. That is a sobering thought. All right, happy Tuesday. So yesterday I left you with some pretty sobering thoughts about our telomeres and how we can pass them on to our children, and how people from certain zip codes are expected to live longer than people from other zip codes. So let's talk about nutrition for a moment with expectant mothers and see if possibly it would be possible to keep those telomeres longer with things that we can do. So does it really come as a surprise that expectant mothers should eat healthy? Maybe the same foods that I've talked about for several weeks? So just for an example, deprivation of protein can lead to a compromised reproductive tract and earlier mortality. This can be transmitted to third generations. So there's also strong evidence that malnourishment during pregnancy leads to increased heart disease. Offspring oftentimes have lower levels of the enzyme CoQ, of which lead to faster aging of the cardiovascular system. Folate, as a B vitamin, prevents DNA damage and decreases the risk of spina bifida. Babies' telomeres are listening to mom's stress as well. They can suffer from parental stress, from prenatal stress. Things like insulin resistance are more likely to lead to overweight and obesity. Cortisol, which is released in higher amounts when we're stressed, can cross the placenta to affect the fetus. Do your best to avoid negative stress and increase your well-being. Eat a rainbow of foods, a variety of foods with rich, deep color. Avoid pesticides and chemicals in food, and avoid chemical exposure at home. Here are some products you might not have thought about. Plastic PVC shower curtains, perfumes, and even those scented candles we all love are a source of toxins. Okay, so we've carried our child, the baby was healthy, and now let's just talk about that child and their nutrition for a moment. Is it really a surprise that children who have been neglected or traumatized would have shorter telomeres? The name of effect of childhood adversity that lodges itself in the body is biological embedding. The good news? The effects can be halted or reversed if a child is rescued early enough. The imprint of early trauma can change the way we think, feel, and act. Traumatized children grow into adults who have more bad days, and they feel extremely stressed. They are also feeling more joy when that emotion comes along. So they feel the ups and downs higher and lower much more if they've had some trauma in their lives. The pattern isn't unhealthy, but it is more intense and dramatic, and so these adults tend to have difficulty with relations and emotional eating and addictive behaviors. They aren't good at taking care of themselves, in other words. Parental neglect is another telomere shortener. Is any of this really all that surprising? No. Snuggle your baby, offer warmth, comfort, and care readily. Scientists believe that well-nurtured children learn to use their prefrontal cortex in a way that offers a break to the fear response. The prefrontal cortex is the place where the brain's ability to judge things that we come along, that's where that sits. Well-nurtured children also have adequate oxytocin, that hormone that busts stress and reduces blood pressure, the hormone that helps with our sense of well-being. If you find yourself parenting a child who has been through trauma, the book mentions a program called Attachment and Biobehavioral Catch-up, or ABC. It's designed to teach adults how to respond to at-risk children. Sounds like a winner to me. All right, so what about the child who has been nurtured and snuggled and cared for, but who is just extremely sensitive? Yes, there are those children, and they need to have a different parenting style. Nothing happened in the womb. Their parents might have given them the best telomeres possible, and they are just super sensitive. Our temperament is a set of personality traits we're born with, and one aspect is stress sensitivity. Super sensitive children are what is called in the book permeable. Their environment doesn't bounce off them, it penetrates. Being an orchid, as one researcher terms those super sensitive people, isn't good or bad. It's just a card we're dealt with, and raising these children need warmth, gentle correction, and a consistent routine. And there are teens. Some teens find risk a thrill, which makes them feel good. Us adults are terrified, and conflicts often arise. Some are unavoidable. We know this if we are parents. But if the conflicts are constant, learning mitigation strategies are very helpful. I'm not sure I was a great parent. Like many at my age, I imagine, I would do a few things differently, especially after having read this book, if I had the chance to do it over again. The writer Pico Liar refers to smartphones as weapons of mass distraction. I think that's great. My kids had phones, even smartphones, but I'm grateful they weren't quite as prevalent when they were teens as they are now. Here are a couple of ideas to engage with being screen-free with your children. How about number one, the ride to and from school if you take them? No phones. No phones at mealtime. How about that one? And the third one, the first half hour of being in home after being away. So after school or whatever, if you've been on a trip or something, I think that one sounds great. One thing is certain, you must tune into your child. Try not to be pulled into the conflict. And if you are not part of the argument, it cannot escalate. And when you do talk with them about the conflict, try to do it after the emotions have subsided. Try to be curious. Try to approach it from their point of view, but stick to your guns with what you believe. So if you can nurture them while correcting them, this is something that they will learn for adulthood as well, to make them nurturing adults. It's time to conclude the study of the telomere effect. I've learned so much from this book and sharing it with you. One last time, let me refer to the book to wrap up at all of the things that we've talked about over the last few months. Number one, work to change the persistent, intense stress in your life that is in your power to change. Number two, become more compassionate toward others and yourself. Number three, take up a restorative activity and try to practice mindful awareness. Number four, be active. Number five, develop a sleep ritual for restorative sleep. Number six, eat mindfully with whole foods, more fruits and vegetables, omega-3s, and less bacon. Number seven, make room for connection with other humans. Disconnect from the screen. And number eight, work on good quality, close relationships. Number nine, be there for your children. And number 10, cultivate a helpful attitude. Help strangers, be a good neighbor. And number 11, spend time in nature. Number 12, mindful attention to others is your gift to give. As a society, we probably should work for equality in prenatal care and protect children once they're born from violence and trauma. Work for a cleaner environment with toxin-free products that we can put and use in our environment. And number 3, improve access to fresh, healthy, and affordable food for everyone. A human being, wrote Einstein in the New York Times March 29th, 1972 issue, is a part of a whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole nature in its beauty. Nobody is able to achieve this completely, but the striving for such achievement is in itself a part of the liberation and foundation for inner security. So what's next? Well, it's time to put the telomere effect into practice. Practical use by all of us, me included. I'm planning a couple of videos a week to highlight aspects of the practicing ways to at least maintain good telomeres. Things like recipes or food content, supplement nutritional information, restorative practices that work for me, natural cleaning products and ways to use them. I'm not done reading and learning, but for a while, let's focus on practice. If you have ideas, questions, things you'd like for me to cover, please leave a comment. Things that work for you will probably work for someone else. Thank you to everyone who has encouraged me and listened to me these last few months. I hope you've learned as much as I have, perhaps gleaned a few suggestions to use in your own life. I'm also super excited to continue with the next phase. So stay tuned, and once again, I would highly recommend that you purchase your own copy of the Telomere Effect and go through it, use my videos, see what you can learn, and put it to use. Thanks, folks.